This is Drew Kamp, President, March 12th, 2021, weekly legislative video update. A few things that I want to touch on regarding state policy to this week. Number one is that the Revenue Estimating Conference, which will really outline the budget, um, budget projections for both the current fiscal year and the next few fiscal years, will meet next Thursday, which is really, really important because whenever they meet, they provide some certainty for the ongoing budget targets that the current legislature is working on for both FY 2022, but then looking ahead to FY 2023, give them an idea of what the capacity may be for some larger bills like broadband and some of these other bills that are asking for quite a bit of significant investment and appropriation. Also, what that included in that would be tax reform, for example, something we've advocated for quite a bit. All of those big ticket items, we really need to get those revenue estimating conference know where we're going to be and what exactly the legislature can do on some of those big ticket items, as well as where those budget targets need to be for just general appropriations for overall state affairs. The first thing I want to touch on is a bill that Senator Dawson put in and filed this week, and it has to do with income tax triggers and the inheritance tax. So a couple of years ago in 2018, their legislature passed and the governor signed a pretty substantial income tax reform bill. But one of the things that was included in that is there was some triggers that had to be met for certain things to happen. So what this bill would do is it authorize future tax cuts to take place by removing the contingency triggers, as I mentioned, that had been previously put in place in that 2018 legislation. This would go into effect on January 1st, 2023, and what they would do is lower the top individual income tax rate from 8.53 to 6.5%, reduce the number of income tax brackets from 9 to 4 in the tax code, and it would end federal deductibility, something that we've long advocated for as a business organization. It also repeals the state inheritance tax, beginning with a state of descendants dying after. One thing that's important to note is the Iowa Capitol Dispatch noted this morning in their news articles is the American Rescue Plan may prohibit states from using federal funds to either directly or indirectly offset a reduction in the net tax revenue or delay the imposition of any tax or tax increase. So we are going to have to get some clarification on what that means, if any of those federal dollars can or cannot be used for some of these provisions and what restrictions may be on there. And then that obviously would change how the legislature would go about trying to fund some of these initiatives. Another bill that I want to make sure I touch on is tech censorship. There was a subcommittee on the bill on Wednesday afternoon, the Senate bill, which is the harsher, I guess you could put it as, of the two, and the one that really goes after the existing incentives and assistance that have been provided by state and local governments. There's major issues there, and we're definitely opposed to this bill. We have been since early on, and we're opposed to the House bills and this bill as well. But what's important to note with this is one, it puts mandates on local governments. It would also make not only that state incentives would go away, but it would also force city governments, to also peel back anything that they had done. Otherwise, they would face financial implications from the state going forward. So it's something that they put an undue burden and some mandates on the local government, which we don't feel is right. That's something that there's the local control level, but also it would impact, as I said, existing contracts. And anytime you look at impacting existing contracts, there is the potential for litigation. I'm not a lawyer, but anyone can tell you if you breach a contract, you very well may have a legal incident on your hands. So that is something that is also important to note in this legislation. And another big thing as well is that it puts a lot of additional responsibilities on the Attorney General's office, which they have said that they don't have the capacity to do right now with their current staffing and appropriation. So there's limitations and considerations that would need to be taken there. It also has broad implications on a litany of other entities that would be impacted, as I mentioned, as you trickle down into local government and some of the broad range of implications censoring or penalizing one of these tech companies could provide. So it's something we're watching very, very closely. We are once again against it. We'll continue to advocate against it in both the House and the Senate. And we hope to see some positive movement over the next week or two, moving away from this bill, kind of moving forward. It already sent the wrong message to folks investing in our state who are in the are in the technical space and work in that technical environment and arena. It's sent the wrong message that we're not open for business. That's something we're going to have to recoup from. We're trying to do our best to get out in front of it as an organization. And we've been happy to be opposed to that bill and work alongside our partners with Google and others throughout the state in doing so. Another bill that I want to make sure I touch on is tax increment financing. So what this would do is it would get rid of all perpetual TIFs, slum and blight as well, and it would ratchet it down over a 10-year period at 10% each. That creates a litany of problems, whether it's it would cut down on that increment and the ability to do large projects or use that increment to invest in large projects in these given districts. And we think that's not something that's of interest to the state or to our local communities. It also hampers us from being competitive with our folks across the river. That's one of the main tools we're able to utilize to our advantage when competing for projects, for expansions, and also new attractions here in the community. TIF is something we often use in urban renewal and use to our advantage. So we need that to remain a flexible tool to be able to do so. And the last thing I'll say on TIF is it also usually comes down to the fact they have to backfill the 540 levy. The state is doing that for economic development projects. But one thing that's important to note is the school districts don't lose any money. There's already two funds, PEPL and one other, that are exempted from any of the TIF deferment of funds. But then also they don't lose any money insofar as that they're continually getting the existing revenue from the valuation of this valuation added based on the increment put in by an urban renewal project. Obviously, they're going to see increased revenue because of the increased the be on that land. So that's something we continue to have conversations with. Kind of every stop to really make sure we're educating those legislators as we talk about this topic, because that's very important moving forward. With broadband, we continue to have conversations about policy and speed. We're getting more and more buy-in on the fact that we need 100 up and 100 down to meet the demands of the manufacturing 4.0 that Debbie's pushing forward. Debbie Durham and Iowa Economic Development Authority are pushing forward. So that's becoming less of an issue, but the appropriation is going to be something that we'll need to watch as we get the revenue. Housing and Iowa Economic Development tax credits, that's something we continue to really push for. We think there's some really positive things with the workforce housing tax credits, brownfield, grayfield tax credits, some of the new tax credits and assistance for downtown developments and things like that, that looks at shuffling around some of the IEDA tax credit allocations to really reprioritize them based on demand. So we're in support of both of those bills. We continue to monitor them. We know that we still have some work to do, especially on the housing bill in the Senate, just because we need to continue to have conversations of what increasing those numbers looks like and what that does to the cap and the potential spend that the state would make for such programs. Another piece that I want to touch on as well is childcare. And there was some developments this week as insofar as the House has passed 6 bills. They haven't really moved much in the Senate. We continue to push the Senate to move those bills, but the House passed another 2 bills as well. And what they did was it allowed high quality job child care awards to be included within any application for high quality jobs, which is our basic form of assistance that we use with the state for local economic development projects. And then also, if a developer owns the other bill would allow, if a developer owns a building, it would allow upgrades to develop the building for childcare to receive tax credits that are also transferable. And why that's important is that can be transferred to a nonprofit that would then potentially lead and oversee that operation that could then get the benefits. So that's very important to note as well. We continue to push medical malpractice as well. It's extremely important as a border community right across the river. They have a lot more competitive medical malpractice and a lot more protective medical malpractice coverage. So it makes it hard for us to attract folks to our great hospitals and healthcare providers here. Continue to work on that as well. Which the ones I wanted to highlight for this week. With that, I thank you very much for your support of the Council Bluffs area